Hey guys, Barbara from TinyGirlBrain here, coming to you today to talk to you about modern yellow journalism. I like to use the term rabble-rousers, people who like to just stir up crap. So that's what we're going to talk about today. You may remember the term yellow journalism from your history class long ago. It was a term coined in the 1890s. In the period leading up to and kind of encouraging the U.S. into the Spanish-American War, I believe. It was the fight against Spain in Cuba and the Philippines, and I think I know we got the Philippines out of it. I'm pretty sure we got Puerto Rico out of it too, maybe. We can talk about that later. If you want to know more about that, let me know. I'll do research. We can talk about it. Anyway, so it was coined during that period of time. Some people think that because it was used during that period of time for New York newspapers, or it was coined because of the print media and newspapers, that we've kind of grown out of that because of legislation that was passed and things that were done to kind of mediate that and steer news more back to fact-based, which is what it was for a long time in print and in radio and TV. But in today's world, we've kind of moved away from that. One thing I'd like to point out is that it was not new even in the 1890s, because if you do even further research or back further in time, it was historically proven to have been part of the antebellum period and the time frame leading up to the Civil War, and it kind of can be proven to be a factor in that period too, and playing on people's emotions and pushing people towards things. So I just want you to take this into mind as we're talking about this today and about how this applies to today's media, because news and media in general has a responsibility, whether we understand it or they understand it, and I feel like they probably do understand it, but the population as a whole does not. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. You know, a lot of people get their news today from cable news networks and Facebook and Twitter and whatever, and those are all great and fantastic ways to supplement news if that's where you want to go, but those can't be your only news sources, because a lot of those places are pushing opinions as facts, and opinions are not facts. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got them and thinks that theirs doesn't stink, but that's not necessarily the case, and we need to learn from other people's opinions too and take in other people's point of views. So yeah, opinions are not facts. So that's kind of my problem with these places. You know, yellow journalism was coined because of the sensationalist tactics in reporting and the overzealous language when using to describe incidents that happen. And does this not sound familiar in some of the things that we see in the media today? I think so. You see a lot of clickbait headlines, and things out there just to kind of draw you in, or, you know, you get the opinionated news to get you to watch for just a little bit longer so that they can get those numbers up. They can get that money. They can get those advertising dollars, whatever. Well, I mean, I know that we're all in a business and that we all have things that we need to do. I'm not necessarily in the business to get subscribers, though they're great, so please subscribe. But, yeah, it's all fake news. Like, whether you want to believe in fake news or not, that's what it is. When you're trying to sell your opinion as news, that's fake news. So, once again, we fall into responsibility, and so that's why you need to consider this when you're taking in your news sources, and try to get your news sources from reputable sources, because when you're subscribing to those things that aren't necessarily reputable and they're selling their opinion as news, then you're buying into that, you're propagating it, you're passing that on to other people, and it just perpetuates this. And we'll get into that a little bit further, because that's part of the consequences of the yellow journalism tactics. So, yeah, on top of the opinionated news and getting your news from these uncredible sources, it only helps to create these echo chambers of everyone's opinions. So you're able to find this little niche of, oh, these people think just like me, or, oh, I want to follow this group, and I don't have to believe or listen to somebody who disagrees with me. And so I can just wallow in my own thoughts and my own feelings and my own opinions. And how does that make you better than any, how does that drive you further? How does that get you anywhere? How do you get through life like that? That's not real life. Life is full of conflict and dealing with people who are different than you. You're not going to be around people who constantly have the same opinion as you, and believe everything that you believe. So you have to have that conflict, and have to have people out there who may not necessarily agree with you on every single detail, but you can find that common ground and find what you can agree on and move forward in that, and be like, okay, well, we think that this would be great if we can, let's just work together, because you and I both agree that people who are food insecure that's awful, and we need to help work towards a goal of making people not be food insecure and not having to worry about where their next meal is coming from, or if they're going to be able to eat until they get paid. Okay? So let's worry about the bigger things in life, instead of, oh, well, you and I can't agree on whatever. Okay? I know some of these bigger things that we can't agree on are big issues too, and I'm saying that we should agree and move forward together. I'm just saying we need to find the common ground. If we can't find the common ground, then agree to disagree, and agree on the fact that we are all human beings and we should just be civil to each other. Just be nice to each other. Okay? We don't have to love each other whatever, but love one another in Jesus' name, because we're all human beings. And if you don't believe in Jesus, then just love each other, because we're all human beings. Okay? It's just the right thing to do. It's good manners, right? So anyway, consequences of yellow journalism. Sorry, trying to get back on point. It equates to the further detriment of, it has psychological effects on the population. It equates, oh my goodness, it equates to the further detriment of the psychological health of our country. What I mean by that is, when we're watching these news stories constantly where they're telling us that, we need to make a big deal out of this, and we have to care because of this, and everything is such a huge deal. It creates this anxiety and this unrest inside of us that just, it can drive you crazy if you just continue to buy into it and let it get to you, and just your mind will just go nuts over it. So that's part of it, okay? Just think about that for a minute. Think about how much, if you just sit there and listen to what's going on in the world today. And I'm talking about for real, if you really just, you keep CNN or Fox News or whatever playing in the background, or, you just scroll through the headlines all day, whatever, because that's how you get your news, is you're just catching it here and there. it's all comes down to almost hearsay and telephone and things. You remember how that got twisted? And so it can mess with your mind. Like, it all messes with your mind. It gets warped. And it creates this unrest and anxiety within us, which can further tear us apart as people, because it pits us against each other, because it makes us feel like, you know, if they're not with us, they're against us, because that's what they're selling us. And then on top of that, it makes us feel like, okay, well, then everybody's my enemy, because if they're not with me, they're against me. So I've got to go out and face the world ready to fight every single day. Well, not everybody's out to get you. Like, you don't need to go out to the world and fight every single day. Like, yes, some days are hard and you need to be prepared to fight, but you don't need to face the world with like a fighting attitude. You can still go out and try to make the best. Now, yeah, does everybody have a bad day and everybody does go out into the world with a fighting attitude occasionally? Yes, it happens. Guilty, I'll tell you. But you still go out and you still put a smile on and you try to be nice and just try to make the world a better place instead of putting that out into the world. And that's where I go back to, that tears us apart, because we're pushing people away instead of trying to find that common ground and bring people in. On top of that, it's tearing us down, because it makes us feel bad about ourselves if, you know, we're anxious or uneasy about all of these things that are going on. And then, you know, well, if we don't believe that, or we're not necessarily agreeing with that, and, you know, it puts us on as an outlier on the fray, well, then what's wrong with me and why do I feel different? And that's not fair either. Like, there's nothing wrong with you for not wanting to subscribe to what they're selling. I'm not necessarily. So there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not okay for them to make you feel that way just so that they can get you to watch for that extra 30 seconds, or to get you to click on that news story and read, so that they can get those ad dollars. On top of that, it tears us down in the other aspect, because when people use these tactics, they're not worried about the repercussions, especially in today's world, where previously in print media, you know, if they sold a story that was untrue, or even in news like television, if they say something that's untrue, they can be sued for slander or libel, and saying things that are untrue or harmful to someone's reputation. But in today's society of being out there to get the headlines and to get subscribers and people to read and buy into it, they are not worried about those repercussions, because by the time that they actually say they're sorry or print that retraction or whatever they've got to do so that they don't get sued or have to pay less money in the end, everybody's moved on. Like, nobody cares about it anymore. They've moved on to the next story. Case in point, if you want a perfect example of recent history, is the Brent Kavanaugh case, where, you know, everybody wanted to count him as a horrible human being, because how could we ever possibly put somebody on the Supreme Court that had been accused of rape? But you know what? That's not what was actually true, and everybody wants to accuse him before they actually know the facts and put it out there, and everybody's on her side. Media had her attention on it. That's how it went, and then you know what? It's not true. That's not what was proved to be, and you can form your own opinion on that or not. I'm just saying that the case was thrown out of court because there wasn't enough evidence to prove it, and a lot of people in the court of public opinion kind of slaughtered the man And by the time that the actual court threw out the case and decided there was not enough evidence against him to convict him, a lot of people had already decided he was guilty and moved on and didn't really care. And so you got to think about the repercussions, and you got to think about what you're putting out there into the world. So, anyway, on top of that, you have some people who seem to prey upon human emotion and morbidity or whatever, but every time that there seems to be a mass shooting or mass violence happening, that they like glorify the perpetrator and like tend to put them out there as somebody that we need to know everything about, and let's get into their mind and all this stuff. And I mean, yeah, like we all kind of want to know what's going on in there, but at the same time, like by doing so, we're planting that seed into somebody's head out there who may be a little bit mentally unstable, or have something going on, that when they see this, they're like, oh man, that's the perfect way for me to become infamous, and I can get in on that. I can do that. That's it. We don't need to know everything about these people. Like, these people do horrible things, and sometimes that happens and we don't need to know the reason why. Like, there's no explanation for it. Some people are just crazy. Some people, I'm sorry, crazy may not be the right word. Some people just did not have the right help that they needed and made the wrong decisions, and horrible repercussions for that. And we don't need to have 24-hour news segments about these individuals 4 days on end so that we can understand every aspect of them and know every relation that they come across. So, okay. In the end, major point. These news broadcasters, like, we need to go back to the days of Walter Cronkite and let's just give our facts and you can form your own opinion. And if you catch your local news, that's a little bit more of what you're getting, and you're not getting spoon-fed these opinions of people like Anderson Cooper or whomever on whatever, not particularly pointing anybody out, just calling out guilty as I see it. But regardless of it being like news on the TV or print or radio or media, however you're getting it, there is a responsibility that you have in your reporting to the citizens that, you need to be factual in your reporting. That responsibility is to, your audience, to the citizens. And like, I know that you all talk about this responsibility and, that's why you do these stories. And yes, that's true. But at the same time, like, there's also an agenda that's being pushed, and you need to walk that fine line. And sometimes that line gets crossed. And I think that we're tending to cross it more just to try to get those viewers or subscribers or whatever. So, we have this responsibility that we need to be truthful and deliver those facts as unbiased as we possibly can to allow the audience and the citizens to form our own opinion about these things. We should be dealing more in like facts and absolutes and less in opinions and feelings and, hopes or thoughts or insecurities that are being projected onto the audience from whomever is delivering the message or, trying to push their agenda. Additionally, I want to know, like, when we're going to begin to hold some of these larger companies responsible for these tactics, because I can't be the only one who sees this. If I am, like, wow. Additionally, sounds like a great research topic for somebody, and if you want some additional ideas or information, hit me up. But you know, when someone or lots of someones get together and decide to hold CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or Huffington Post or whomever accountable for the mental distress that they cause on a daily basis, the mental distress that they inflict on a daily basis from what they're putting out into the world and what they're promoting to us as citizens. Yeah, you know, I'm not lawsuit happy, but you know, lawsuit's a good way to get somebody's attention. But you know, when is somebody gonna be like, enough is enough already? Like it's unrealistic to be like, everybody stop watching CNN, because that's not for real gonna happen. But you know, when is somebody gonna be like, enough is enough already? And you've got to stop portraying this as news, and you've got to stop delivering stories like this, because it has actual repercussions on like the population as a whole. Like, enough. Okay, so yeah, if you're interested in more research about it, or if you don't believe what I'm trying to tell you right now, I got my bachelor's in history from Auburn, and my thesis topic when I was getting my history degree was about Rablerousers in the antebellum period, and how newspapers and how they reported the news affected the personal lives of people in central Alabama and in their daily matters, and like what they wrote about and how they felt about it when talking to people, or you know, writing letters to friends and family. So that's part of where some of this comes from, and I also have some knowledge because I had to do a whole lot of research for it. Like I said, it sounds like the modern take on it could be an excellent research topic for somebody else out there. And another also reference for you out there is Civil War in the Press. It's a book. It's one of the books that I used for my topic, and the editors of the book, it's several different accumulations of things, but the editors argue that taken together, the antebellum press was more influential than commonly thought. So that can help you to gain some insight into the actual effects of what the press can do to the population as a whole. And then additionally, there's Craig Miner's Seeding the Civil War, Kansas in the National News, 1844 to 1858, which is about bleeding Kansas and yellow journalism in that area, which is again before yellow journalism of the 1890s. So it's not a new concept. It's not anything that is being like, I'm not coming up with anything new here. But you just need to think about the fact that it didn't go away. Like, it's still here and it still applies to you today. And I'm just tired of it and fed up and saying enough is enough. And I can't be the only person out there. So somebody else out there agree with me, say enough is enough. And yeah, maybe we can stop putting anger out into the world and try to find common things that we can agree upon. So if you like what I'm putting out there, then subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.